Hello and welcome to Jrock's Pop Culture Revolution. This is episode number 14 now. When we did our last episode on Frosty the Snowman, we ended the episode where I was kind of talking about that this time when we did this, that we were going to be talking about a Good Times episode, Christmas themed episode, and we're still going to do that. But we've changed our plans for what this is going to become. It's going to also include the Good Times episode, as I mentioned, but it's going to become so much more because this is actually, we're calling this Jrock's Pop Culture Revolution Christmas Day Special because I thought it would be fun to kind of look back on some Christmas traditions, how these things got started. So let's get into it because this is going to be so much more than what it originally was. So now, I have a friend that every year, one of the things he looks forward to is watching on the local channel 5 KTTV here in Los Angeles. They have this programming where all day they have a picture of a Yuletide log. It's basically a picture of a fire burning in a fireplace, and they play music all day long on the TV channel. There's no regular programming for several hours. They run it every Christmas day. And they play music over it. So this is something my friend has enjoyed for several years, and something he always looks forward to. I can't wait to watch the log on Christmas Day. And I never really understood this, and I thought, I wonder how this tradition got started, because besides my friend, there are many other people that enjoy this. Okay, so here's what I was able to find out. Originally, I wanted to find out how long they had been doing this on KTTV in Los Angeles. And I came to find something interesting now. It originated, years before, like this going back to 1966. So let's get into this, okay? The very first Yule log TV broadcast dates back to, as I said, December 12th, 1966, on a local New York TV station, WPIX, Channel 11. So I don't know if how many of you were around back then? That you watched this for the very first time, or if this has now become very much like my friend, an annual holiday tradition every year. You tune into the Yule log wherever you are, because while it originated on WPIX Channel 11 in New York, it has become a holiday tradition in many TV stations across the land. And so let's get into this. It was created by WPIX president Fred M. Thrower as a holiday gift to viewers, especially for viewers who lived in small apartments without fireplaces. Now, I can tell you as a child, one of the things that I remember most about especially Christmas Eve, we would have Christmas Eve every year when I was a kid. For most of my life at my grandparents' house in Norwalk, California. They lived on the corner of Fidel Avenue, right down the street from the Norwalk Dairy. If any of you are familiar with that area. Now, both the house and the Norwalk Dairy have since been demolished, no longer exist, sadly. But for years at that family home, we celebrated Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was always a big celebration, especially Christmas time every year for our family. And we had tons of people back in the day, tons of family members that were still around. Sadly, here in 2025, a lot of those people have passed on and no longer here, but we sure do remember the fun times. And as I'm talking about this Yule log, it's very interesting because one of the fondest memories I have from my childhood is my grandfather had a fireplace in the house. And man, on some of those cold winter Christmas Eve days, they built a huge fire. I remember helping my grandfather, even my father, light the fires. We'd throw newspaper in there to make the fire get bigger. Man, it was my brother would help too. It was something we just kind of enjoyed, and I kind of forgot about that. And then this morning, I kind of got thinking about how my friend looks so much forward to every year watching the Yule log programming on TV, and I think to myself, it's not something I never really got into. I'm like, how could people be so into sitting in front of a TV screen for hours and hours and just listening to the music. But okay, um, so I found out how this tradition got started. As I said, it dates all the way back to December 12th, 1966, on Channel 11 in New York City. And again, interestingly enough, it was also created again talking about people that lived in small apartments that didn't have a fireplace. See, again, oftentimes in life, we take things for granted that we're not even aware of it. And the fact that this guy that was a program president of a TV station, is thinking about people that don't have fireplaces at Christmas time that can't experience this. It's a very interesting, fun fact to learn that this is why this became a Christmas tradition. I just cannot believe it. And so for people that did not experience what me and my family experienced, the warmth of a real fire, Christmas fire, and a real fireplace in the family home. I know what that's like. So it's kind of hard to believe that some people lived in a place where they didn't have a fireplace. They couldn't experience. So you could see for those people, even though they couldn't feel the warmth of the flames and a fireplace, it was something probably gave them something to hope for, gave them something to dream about. Thought, well, this is the next best thing. If I can't be in front of a lit fireplace, I can enjoy some of my favorite traditional Christmas songs being played over the fire here. So again, it's interesting how these Christmas traditions start, and then it also the president of a TV company came up with the idea. He thought it'd also be a fun way to give his employees that worked at the TV station Christmas Day off to go spend with their family, because of the fact that it's just kind of a looped video of the fireplace, with music being played. It did not need a whole bunch of employees to stay Christmas Day and work, because there was no regular programming on the TV station. So these people that worked at the station were now allowed to go spend Christmas Day with their family. What a great thing for those people, maybe years before this, they always had to work on Christmas Day. I mean, how many of us have, throughout our lifetime, I could say, me, just a handful. I typically don't have to work on Christmas Day. Sometimes, like when I was a young teenager just starting out, like having my first job, sometimes, had to work on Christmas Day. Not too often. It's a rare occasion. And it's even rare now that the older I get, but like even the job I have now. So we had to work Christmas Eve, have Christmas Day off, but then tomorrow on December 26th, got to go back to work. It's a Friday, and I would love to have Friday off, but hey, get a chance. I have a job, get a chance to go earn some money. So why not? But now talking about Christmas Eve and having to work Christmas Eve, let me tell you what happened yesterday. Kind of getting off the subject, I know, folks, but you might get a kick out of this. So of course, it was pouring down rain in what's typically beautiful sunny California. I drive around disabled adults in my car, and so one individual I was working with in the morning from 9 to 1. It's in the afternoon. It's right before 1 o'clock, getting ready to take him home, and I was going to have another client from 2 to 5 p.m. and then I was going to head home after that. But my day got cut short because of the weather. So what ended up happening is I turned down this one street that I usually take this individual to go home. The street is blocked because somebody else has got in an accident. You got all these traffic cops, okay, folks, directing traffic. And I turned where I thought where one lane was still turned, but the traffic officer started yelling, "Turn that way." Okay, so I always do what I'm instructed to do, especially when dealing with a police officer. But as I turned down, pouring down rain, it's raining harder than it typically does. I was able to drive the car, but then what happened is I turned on this kind of nothing of a street, and it's like almost kind of a dead end street. But because of the weather, there was traffic backed up for miles, and so as I'm turning, my car kind of just a little kind of jumps up in there. Nobody gets hurt or anything. I didn't even hit anything or hit a car. What happened was there was water around the car, and apparently there was this deep pothole that the car went down in. And amazingly, the bottom of the car didn't get damaged. Nobody got hurt. But I get out of the car because I feel some kind of dragging. my back bumper of my car is literally hanging by a thread, folks. Okay, and I have three women come and help. They actually were able to get the bumper back on so I could drive the car. Thank God for that. Nobody got hurt. So, in a way, it's not what I call a blessing, but it's all about perspective, folks. Could have gotten in an accident. The car could have gotten damaged to a point where I couldn't drive it, but at least I was able to drive it. I drew up to my mechanic. He's going to get me a new bumper and let me know how much that's going to be. But luckily, it's repairable. He told me, even in the current, even without a back bumper, he said you could drive this car all the way to Las Vegas, Jason, and the car would be fine. It's safe to drive. So I thank God and mechanic and everybody involved for the fact the car is drivable and that everything turned out all right. So it ended up being a Merry Christmas last night as far as Christmas, Christmas Eve and everything. Today's Christmas Day, and one of the things I want to do is this little Christmas special day. Had a great Christmas Eve. My dad thought it'd be a real fun idea, and it was. We had homemade Chinese food for Christmas Eve, and that was a little something different. But getting back to the Yuletide log, again, this is something that I never really kind of thought too much, or I really kind of spent the whole time enjoying myself. But I know so many other people do, so it's something I was thinking about, and I looked up and I got this information and learned how it all got started. The Yule program shows a looped program, of a fireplace log, of a burning log in a fireplace, accompanied by traditional holiday music. Now, again, originally I wanted to make this about the KTTV Yule log thing they do here in Los Angeles on Channel 5 every year. I think they've been doing it for at least last 10 years. I didn't really get a chance to look that up. But I ended up finding all this other stuff about the New York channel, Channel 11, WPIX, and that's where it originated all the way back in 1966. And it's kind of funny because in 1960s was a big time for holiday specials and stuff. Okay, one of the very first holiday specials that we discussed in some of our past episodes to start with was It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. That was around 1965. And not only was that one of the very first holiday TV specials that we've discussed, but it was the first time where Halloween really got kind of a lift as far as holidays that were really started to be celebrated and appreciated. With the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, it was fun because for the first time, and I'm reading this from a historical perspective, when I'm doing the research for these episodes, and come to find out that before the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, Halloween was just thought of something, trick or treat. Kids get dressed up, they go out for Halloween, they knock on people's door, hey, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. And you say trick or treat, and typically people give you, candies or treats, and you have a bag, and you go around the neighborhood, and you do that, and kids for many, many years, even before I was here on planet Earth, would get dressed up, and a big deal would be getting dressed up for Halloween, what you were going to be. Some people plan it many months in advance. But before the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, Halloween wasn't really something that was celebrated except for kids getting dressed up and knocking on people's door and getting candy. After the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, it's one of the first holiday specials, and so more of these TV specials started to be made because the Great Pumpkin was so popular. And like I said in some of our past episodes, Christmas has always had Santa Claus or Rudolph, Red-Nosed Reindeer. Come 1969, they had the Frosty the Snowman TV special that we talked about in our last episode. And that TV special was inspired by the song that was very popular in the 1950s, of course, Frosty the Snowman. And so the 1969 TV special, based on the song, kind of brought Frosty the Snowman to life. And so, again, in that Christmas special from 1969 that we talked about in our last episode, all of a sudden, people can see what Frosty the Snowman looks like. It's not just a fictional character in a song. We finally see Frosty the Snowman this animated special from 1969 brought to life. And again, when it's become a big holiday pop culture character, I'm talking about Frosty the Snowman. Again, in I believe it was 1966, a year after the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, um, Charlie Brown's Christmas premiered, and they played both Frosty the Snowman and Charlie Brown's Christmas the same night on CBS, um, and and they just received great ratings and stuff. So um, it's amazing how this stuff um, gets started, but it's really kind of become such a big part of our holiday seasons every year, and such a big part of our life, and just I tell you, it's just it's something every Christmas season that I look forward to. That's one thing I can say now. Interesting, interesting fact is that the original audio for the WPIX broadcast of the very first Yule log. Now, I was thinking, because there's so many things that we're capable of finding out now, just at the tips of our fingertips. If you go online and you do some research for like these shows, like I do, I thought, okay, it'd be fun to find. I wonder what was what were some of the songs played on the very first Yuletide log broadcast. Now, interesting thing, it says, well, there's not a definitive list of all the songs for a simple fact that the original audio from that very broadcast on WPIX in 1966 has been lost. But there were people at that time who made lists, and we're around now. Now, here's what we were able to find out about some of the songs that were played. Okay, let's see here. It says "Joy to the World" by Piercy Faith was an instrumental version. Okay. Christmas Carousel by Peggy Lee. Do You Hear What I Hear by the Regency Choir. Winter Wonderland by the Living Voices. Now, these are probably some like local choirs and stuff. Some of these, like the Regency Choir, I'm not sure who that is. I'm going to see if I can look that up. But the Living Voices, in reference to the version of Winter Wonderland that was played on that very first broadcast. So again, I got to kind of thinking, it'd be fun because I seen even where you can go online and even like, and again, this is kind of not having anything to do with the holidays, but I've seen where, for example, you could go online and you could research, for example, what they played on the very first, what was the playlist like for the very first episode of Headbangers Ball, MTV and stuff. You put in a specific date and it'll tell you the songs that were played. So I thought, okay, maybe we can do that. And again, because of technology being what it is, some of these older broadcasts, like in this case, the audio got lost, but they still have video footage of that very first broadcast. So it's interesting because the audio was lost. They do not have a definitive list of what was played. And then probably a lot of the people that were around back then are sent fast. So you can't even go to some of the people and ask, hey, do you remember what was a playlist from that very first, Yuletide log program? So again, it's interesting to find out that this is how, this all got started, and the fact that it originated in New York. And again, it's not just here in Los Angeles, like on KTTV. It's become a Christmas tradition, and I'm sure from what I've been able to kind of discover, they do it in many TV stations all across the United States, probably even, I dare say, the world. And who knows, because something like this becomes so popular, you've got even internet creators, YouTube creators that probably do their own version of a Yuletide log kind of programming, and they choose the songs that are going to be played over Yuletide log. So it's just something that's become tradition. Now, another thing in reference to Christmas time that is very traditional for people is getting together and singing songs. That's another thing I remember, especially when I was a kid, because we used to have a ton of family members that were alive and would come to Christmas Eve and that every year. And man, we did that. One of the big things was everybody singing Christmas carols. I mean, some of mine just, not that I'm even the greatest singer, but the whole group would get together and sing, and everybody would, sounded great together. And like I remember singing songs like Santa Claus is coming to town, um, you know, um, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I mean, and this is just when we get together for Christmas. Um, Silver Bells, rocking around the Christmas tree, stuff like that. We would all sing together. Um, you know, Last night we had Christmas Eve at my mom and dad's downstairs from where I live, and I gave my dad a whole collection of Christmas music CDs that I had. Everything from the Jackson Five to Dolly Parton's uh, Christmas album, Kenny Rogers Christmas, the Beach Boys Christmas album. Striper just recently put out a Christmas album. We played that. So again, in reference to holiday music, my taste varies like many people. It's something I get into the mood for, like, ever since Thanksgiving. I've been listening to Christmas music in my car every day on the way to work. Well, the tradition's probably going to end next week, but until next year. But I've been having fun with that. And again, these artists like Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, these are not typically things that are in my musical collection, but over years I've collected a number of these Christmas CDs, and they're all different versions of those traditional Christmas songs that we all grew up on. But you know what? It rocks my world for the Christmas season. Gets me in the mood. It's a little something different from what I typically listen to. Why not, though? That's what I think I need to suggest for more people to do. Open your ears and be willing to listen to different things, because you might just find out it's not so bad, or hey, I'm glad I got a chance to hear that version of that. Now, one of the most popular Christmas songs ever is, of course, "Joy to the World." Now, I've always liked that because there's many versions of the song, and "Joy to the World" is a very upbeat song. Um, People can sing along to it. It's kind of a happy, kind of celebratory feeling to the song. It unites people. So I wanted to look into the history of "Joy to the World." I wasn't quite sure how far it dated back. Now I found out something very interesting. So here's what I was able to find out. Now, while "Joy to the World" was not originally written as a traditional Christmas song, it should be noted that the song was written by lyricist Isaac Watts, who was an English theologian and was a hymn writer who wrote the lyrics to "Joy to the World." Get this, in 1719, making the song over 300 years old. Now, I cannot believe that song is over 300 years old, but it is. It has a rich history. Now, just think about that. I mean, that's got to be the oldest song that I've ever listened to. I mean, most stuff I listen to dates back to probably, if we listening to like some Elvis Presley, like 1950s, and then 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s, like traditional rock music. But man, this song itself, "Joy to the World," dates back to 17. What was it? Let me. I gotta see this. It says, yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, it's over 300 years old. 1719. That's when it was originally written. It was originally written by this guy Isaac Watts, who was very much into the Bible and church, and he was looking for a way to bring people in church kind of together, and the way he did it was kind of controversial at first, but this is what else I was able to find out. So it says Isaac Watts functionally changed how English speaking Christians sang in church by focusing on personal faith, joy, hope, and praise. And so if you know anything about the lyrics to "Joy to the World," most people, when they listen, they think it's about the birth of God, the birth of Christ. And I think partially that's what he was writing about. But the song was supposed to be about having hope, praising other people, bringing people together. That was kind of his main mission in writing the song. And yet that's what so many people relate when they hear that song to the talk of joy, peace, harmony. Let's all come together. So again, it's very interesting that a song that has really become a traditional Christmas song now. That was not the original intent, but that is what it has become. Almost 300 years after the fact, it is still being celebrated every Christmas, celebrating it because people, when they listen to the lyrics, they think "Joy to the World" is about the birth of Jesus Christ. It doesn't really say directly. People read what they want into the song, but say what you will. Like I said, it's not a really Christmas song. It is now considered very much a traditional Christmas song. It's one of the most played songs every year at Christmas. So you ask anybody, they're going to tell you that "Joy to the World" is very much a Christmas song. And again, people love "Joy to the World" because as a song, it is triumphant. It's about accomplishing something. It's not a sad song. The song is very hopeful. It's not quiet, but it's loud and it's proud. The song is very celebratory. Like, hey, let's come together. Let's bring joy to the world. Let's all get together and celebrate. Now popular artists. I thought, okay, who are some of the most popular artists who've covered "Joy to the World"? Well, I know personally that I love the version on the new Striper Christmas album that they do. Okay, it's also been covered by Nat King Cole, Johnny Mathis, George Strait, the Supremes, and probably the most famous version is the Three Dog Night version from the 1970s. I looked that up on YouTube, and anybody that's a rock fan, I think you're going to love that. Now, so again, this is just, it's very, very, interesting that I had no idea on the history of "Joy to the World" that it dates back 300 years ago. Now, finally, before we wrap up our Christmas special, I wanted to talk about a Good Times Christmas episode that actually was from season 5. I believe it was the 97th episode of the Good Times show, and it was called Penny's Christmas. Now, Penny, of course, Penny came in the later seasons of Good Times. She was not part of the original cast. The character of Penny Gordon, played by Janet Jackson. This was one of Janet's very first roles appearing on TV in the sitcom Good Times. Now, she came on as an abused child. She's living with her natural-born mother, and Willona Woods and the Evans family, they discover that Penny's mother is mistreating her. They get involved ultimately to the point where Willona ends up adopting Penny. But in this Christmas episode from season 5, Willona is still considered Penny's foster mother, which is basically she's been placed in a safe home with a responsible adult, Willona Woods, the Evans family's next door neighbor, which is basically she is the best friend of Florida Evans, who at this point in the series has moved away with her new husband Carl, because Carl found out he had lung cancer, and they had to move temporarily to Arizona, where the air was much fresher. So that was the backstory of that. So at this point, Janet Dubois, who plays the character of Woods, she becomes kind of the her role as Willona Woods gets kind of pushed up in the series, and she's got a lot more airtime than she ever did. And so, again, at this point in time, she's was considered the foster mother of Penny Woods. She's not officially, the adoption has not officially gone through yet. So, in this episode, basically what happens is Willona and Penny are spending their very first Christmas together. As you can imagine, It's something they're very happy about, and they're very looking forward to spending the first Christmas together. Um, Penny and Walona, they go to the local shopping center. They kind of go their separate ways, and Walona says, "I'll be back. You can go do your Christmas shopping, and if you can't find me, here's some money for a cab, and I'll see you at home." Well, during that time, when they're kind of going their separate ways, um, Penny finds a nice bracelet that she wants to give to Walona. Walona, she thinks of as her mother because she's been living with her for a while now, and they're pretty sure the adoption is going to go through. But of course, this episode throws kind of a tailspin, and what it did was, as I guess is often the case, sadly at Christmas time and other holidays, have pickpockets out around town looking to rip people off, and some of these pickpockets are really good. And so while Penny's talking to the sales lady about the fact she loves this bracelet, she's going to get it for her mother. While she's talking to the sales lady, a pickpocket comes and takes the money out of her wallet. She's unaware of it. Oh my God, what am I going to do? The pickpocket took all my money. I don't have any money now to buy my mother a Christmas present. So as you can imagine, without Penny looks around and doesn't see anybody around, but there's a camera in the store. It shows us a video camera, and the show is on back in the 1970s. So this when stuff was going on, and they're just starting to have video cameras in stores and stuff. And so of course Penny ends up getting caught. They catch her on camera, and then eventually somebody knocks on the Evans house apartment, and Penny is with what seems to be some kind of detective, and it's questioning, well, are you this girl's mother? Yes, I am. Well, she's been caught shoplifting. Okay, so this is kind of the whole the main, back in the day when these sitcoms were on, you can almost guarantee every episode is going to have some kind of moral story to kind of teach kids and teach people about right from wrong. Obviously, it's wrong to shoplift and steal, so that's kind of the moral code behind this particular episode. But what ends up happening is, and again, we got to talk about the fact that Good Times takes place in the Chicago ghetto, Chicago project. And I bring that up only because this episode deals with a lot of things. It deals with a lot, first of all, with struggle, financial hardship, deals with love and desperation. And you'll see what I mean as we continue talking about the episode. But she's desperate to get her new mother, Walona, a very special Christmas gift. So her intent and her she's got good intentions. She's got a good heart. She wants to show her new mother how much she loves her, and something gets in the way. A pickpocket comes along, takes all her money. Oh my God, what's she going to do? So she panics, and without thinking, well, I still want to get it for my mother, but so I'm going to steal the bracelet. She ends up getting caught now. The moral dilemma was not so much the fact that shoplifting is wrong, but that's part of the message. But an even bigger part of the moral, or the the meaning behind the episode, is that Penny and Walona are basically mother and daughter, and they're looking so forward to the first Christmas together. And then also at this point, they find out that Penny's adoption is just about ready to be finalized. But then the social worker comes around right as Penny's being escorted home by a detective, and she's there to hear that Penny is shoplifted. Oh my God, I don't know now, Walona, if the final adoption can go through. She's stealing. She's doing things that are wrong, obviously wrong. And Walona's response is, but I said I'm going to punish her. Oh, it goes much more beyond that. We can't have the child stealing. We're going to have to reconsider it. They invite Walona, the Evans invite Miss Dobbs, who's a social worker, to the Evans family annual Christmas party. They want to show Miss Dobbs that Penny is really in good hands. This was just kind of a mistake she made, and that it's really a loving family, and Penny's around good people. Miss Dobbs, who, if you've watched any of the Good Times episodes, she was a reoccurring character from the time Janet Jackson came on as Penny Gordon, and so she was in more than one episode. And so So one of the things we learned about Miss Dobbs is that she suffers from corns, on the bottom of the sore feet and this and that. And Michael Evans asked her in this episode, "Oh, hey, Miss Dobbs, how are your corns?" And Elma tells him, "Michael, that's rude. You don't ask people how their corns are." And so Walona gets very frustrated, thinking that adoption is not going to go through. And at one point during the party, she tries to blackmail Miss Dobbs. Say, "Oh, how do you think they would feel down at your office if they seen you were here getting drunk and dancing and acting crazy?" Um, she goes, "Oh, they wouldn't really like that. They're very conservative down at that office." But right away, Walona, this is an act of desperation. She realizes she's wrong for trying to even blackmail Miss Dobbs. She says, "You know what?" She comes clean, "Miss Dobbs, I didn't get anything on tape like that, and I would never do that. It's wrong." And between the Evans family and Walona, Miss Dobbs realizes that despite a shoplifting incident, that Penny's in pretty good hands, and she goes ahead and she allows for adoption to go through. By the end of the episode, it's kind of announced, okay, it's official, the adoption is going to go through, and now they're mother and daughter. As far as Penny and Walona Woods, and the Evans family, they were a big part of making it happen. And in fact, in reference to Miss Dobbs, at one point also, Walona asked Miss Dobbs, "Hey, by the way, what is your first name?" And she says, "Oh, my first name is Hortense, but my husband doesn't even know what my real name is. He thinks it's Carlotta or something." And so again, we get a little backstory of who Miss Dobbs is in this episode as well. And so again, what it should be noted in regards to Walona adopting Penny Woods, that back in the 1970s is very, one interesting thing about this story being featured on the Good Times sitcom is one of the very first times in the history of TV sitcom where they even touched on the subject of adoption. And also in the 1970s, if any children were adopted, it usually had to be by like a married couple. Back in the 1970s, very rare that you'd see like a single person allowed to adopt a child. The thinking back then was that in order for a child to have a good home, they had to have a mother and a father. And even in the 1970s, not only did you not typically see single people allowed to adopt children, the world was very different back in the 1970s. Also, you really didn't see like gay couples allowed to adopt people either, because again, back in the 1970s, the moral authority, back then thought that was so dead wrong. Two people the same sex, living together, the husband and wife or whatever. They just thought that was so wrong, and so the world has really changed since the 1970s. I mean, you even have like famous people like Elton John. He's got a ton of money, but he's got a as they call a partner that he lives with, a same sex partner. I believe they had a ceremony where they got married, but nobody really looks against that or anything. In fact, a lot of people applaud that these days, the fact that it is allowed. And so I just bring this up because the world is a very different place. And in regards to the Good Times episode we talked about in today's episode, I brought it up because another interesting fact about it is that typically when sitcoms do like holiday themed episodes, it centers around like, comedy jokes, family get togethers, exchange of gifts. But this had more to do with like, it really kind of tugged at your heart because while we got our little moral lesson about shoplifting being wrong, we find out why it is wrong, and also it had more to do with kind of making kids and people realize, one bad decision could kind of ruin everything, kind of affect your whole life. And so this was much more about, Walona getting Penny the Christmas gift she wanted. I mean, the Christmas gift they wanted was to have the adoption go through, to finally be mother and daughter. And Penny making that bad decision to shoplift almost got in the way, almost prevented that from happening. And so I was reading that this episode of Good Times, in regards to holiday themed episodes of sitcoms every year that are played around this time at Christmas time, that's one of the most popular ones that people remember. Every year it is played. It was just played the other day, and I watched. That's what made me want to kind of talk about it in this episode. And I just, it's one of the most special episodes of Good Times. So I'm glad we were able to kind of highlight that. So, um, man, we really highlight a lot of Christmas themed traditions in this episode. We talked about the history of the song "Joy to the World," which, well, I can't get over the fact that that song is over 300 years old. Just get your head around that, folks. Joy to the world. Wow. Next time you hear that song, you'll realize just how special that song is. The fact that it wasn't originally a Christmas song. Talked about the history of how the Christmas tradition of the Yule log programming on TV. For many people here in Los Angeles where I live, they catch it every year on KTTV. So, wow, I can't believe it. That's really got a story behind how it got started. Wow. And then we, of course, talked about the Good Times episode. So, folks, I hope you have a great Christmas Day. New Year's is just days away. Next week. Wow, folks, 2026 will be here. I'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.